All right, this video goes with the quadratics review. You'll want to watch this if you're going to retake the quadratics test. I've gone through and just picked a few problems that I think will help you out and will help you to be able to do the rest of the review all on your own. All right, so when I look at this very first problem, we're given a graph and we're asked to find the vertex and the solutions. Well, the vertex of a quadratic graph is this very, very lowest point or like this very, very highest point. Just depends on which direction your graph is going. So I know that the vertex is always an ordered pair, okay? And so I'm looking at this graph and I want to find this very, very lowest point, very lowest ordered pair. So this point on the graph, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, and then it's not at all up and down. So my vertex is -4, 0, left 4, and then not at all up and down. Solutions are where my graph touches the x-axis. Okay, solutions are the same things as x-intercepts. Okay, so what I'm doing here, we're going to end up with x equals. Sometimes there's no solution if the graph never touches the x-axis. Sometimes there's just one solution, and sometimes there's two solutions. Okay, so what I see here is this graph touches the x-axis in exactly one place. So this one will have one solution, x equals, and it's to the left 4, so x equals -4 is the solution. All right, when you look at this graph over here, and I'm not going to do this whole problem, but the vertex is this very highest point, and then you'll have two solutions here because I see that I touched the graph in two places, or I'm sorry, I touched the x-axis in exactly two places. So here you're going to end up with two solutions, and your vertex is still going to be an ordered pair right up here. All right. For 3 and 4, you may need to borrow a graphing calculator from your teacher so that you can get those graphed. You're going to answer the questions here on the sides, though, exactly the same way as you did with number 1, but you'll just have to make your own graphs with the graphing calculator first. All right. Number 6, our directions here say solve by factoring. I see I have 1, 2, 3 terms for 5 and 1, 2, 3 terms for number 6. So to solve by factoring here, we're going to MARF this problem. All right. So I'm going to multiply, add, restate, and factor. All right, and we're actually going to do MARFs, put the S here at the end because we also are going to solve for this problem. So when I MARF, I multiply the very first number by the last, so 2 times -4 equals -8, and then I add to be the middle number. Okay, so you're looking for your magic numbers that multiply to be -8 and add to be 2. All right. If you struggle with finding those numbers at all, you should be listing your factor pairs of m over to the side. So 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and that's it. Those are the only factor pairs. So I'm looking for the 2 here that can add together to be 2, which 1 plus 8 is 9 and 2 plus 4 is 6. So it seems like maybe there's no numbers that do that, but since it's a -8, I know that one of these numbers will have to be negative. So you kind of just have to play with it and test it out. What I'm going to find is -2 and +4 are my magic numbers. They multiply to be -8. They add to be +2. Okay, and if you switch that negative sign, they don't work, so you have to make sure you have the negative on the right spot. Okay, then to restate, I start with the same first term and use the same last term, and I'm going to use these two numbers in the middle. So restate 2x squared, and now I'm going to use my magic numbers. -2x plus 4x, and then -4 for the end. So I used my magic numbers here in the middle, and because I had x in the middle of the original problem, I put x's on those magic numbers. Okay, now I'm going to do my factor by grouping. Here I can factor out a 2x, right? They each have a 2 in common, and because they both have x's, I take the one with the smaller exponent. Right? And now I do my division. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I had x squared. I took out an x, so I'm left with x. All right, and now -2 divided by +2 is -1. I had an x, I took out x. I don't need any more x's then is what that means. Okay. Now I'm ready to do the next part. 4 and 4, the biggest number that goes into those is 4. And I'm going to take out a +4 because the first part is positive. It doesn't matter that the second part is negative. If the first part's positive, we'll leave it a positive. Now they don't both have x's, so I can't take another x out. 4 divided by 4 is 1. I had an x. I did not take out an x, so I need that x there. And then -4 divided by 4 is -1. It's important that your two sets of parentheses match right here. Okay, and so now I can finish my factoring by putting 2x plus 4 together. All right, and my matching parentheses go after that. So 2x plus 4 times 1x minus 1. But the problem is we haven't solved yet. We've now factored, but now we actually need to solve these. Don't forget that we had this equals 0 at the end of our problem. So we still have that, this equals 0. What we need to do is take each of these factors, each of these sets of parentheses, and set them equal to 0. So 2x plus 4 equals 0, and 1x minus 1 equals 0. So I've created two equations, and now I'm going to solve these two equations. So if I'm trying to get x by itself here, I'm going to do minus 4 on each side. So 2x equals negative 4. Divide both sides by 2, so x equals negative 2. And that's one of my solutions. But just like with the graph, sometimes we end up with two solutions. So now I need to solve this equation, add 1 to each side. And we know 1x is the same really as just x. 0 plus 1 is 1. So my two solutions are x equals negative 2 and x equals 1. If we were to graph this equation, we would see that it crosses the x-axis at negative 2 and positive 1. All right, so we've marked and then we separated those to solve them. On the back page, you have two more, and these are more like type 2 problems for solving with factoring. All right, what you see is it does not equal 0. We need to get it equal to 0, all right, before we can factor. So to get this equal to 0, I'm going to add 11x to each side. All right, I notice that none of these are like terms. This is x squared, just a constant number, and this has an x. So I can't actually add or combine any of those. What I need to do is list it out and make it look like a marking problem. 3x squared, and then I need my x term to go next. So plus 11x plus 6 equals 0. All right, and I'm actually not going to finish this problem. I just wanted to start that, and you're going to need to do the same thing over here with number 7, get it equal to 0 before you can move on. You're now going to mark this problem out and then set the factors equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to let you go ahead and finish that one, and we'll go ahead and look at solving with square roots. Okay, solving with square roots. If the x squared is already all by itself, you can just square root both sides. But like in number 10 situation, the x squared is not all alone yet. So the first thing we need to do is get x squared all alone. And the way I'm going to do that is here, divide by 3 on both sides, right? So that these 3 will cancel out over here. I get x squared equals, and I believe this comes out to be 64. Okay? So I still haven't solved for x. I just have x squared. So what undoes x squared is square root both sides. All right, so you may need to type this into a calculator, this right-hand side. But the square root of x squared is x. Those cancel each other out. And then the square root of 64 is 8. And some of you may know that. The thing is that this only gives us one of our two solutions. What we have to remember to do, and our calculator will not tell us this, we have to remember this little symbol that goes in the front, plus or minus 8. Okay? And the reason we have to do that, we're saying there's two solutions. Positive 8 and negative 8 are both solutions to this problem. Positive 8 times positive 8 is 64, but negative 8 times negative 8 is also 64. So I could put in positive 8 or negative 8 in for x, and I would get the correct answer. I would make a true statement either time. All right, these other problems get a little more complex for sure, but each time your goal is to get x squared completely by itself and then square root both sides. All right. The type 3s that are at the bottom are definitely a challenge. Those would be some to take a look at. You might want to check those with your teacher before you take the test, especially if you're trying to get like the best grade possible. I'm not going to do those here on this video because they are type 3, so just make sure that you take your time and check with your teacher on those.